Sonic Adventure is a bold, brilliant, and very nostalgic game. Although not necessarily planned from the start, an integral part of Sonic Adventure's development cycle included a redesign of Sonic and the main cast, and the introduction of a couple of new characters. I'm sure you're all familiar with E102 Gamma and Big the Cat, the two brand new playable characters that the game introduced us to. But did you know that remnants of another scrapped character also made it into the game, hidden in plain sight, and became the center of one of Sonic Adventure's great mysteries? Let me tell you all about it because I think it's a pretty fun little story. One thing Sonic Adventure did was unify Eastern and Western lore. It was like the Council of Nicaea for Sonic fans. It presented to Western players a world not unlike our own, which was aesthetically quite a dramatic change of pace from how Sonic's world was usually portrayed. The game featured many urban areas like Station Square, the game's primary hub world, and Speed Highway, a fast-paced downtown level. Most of the urban stages are plastered with these cute little fake advertisements for products or movies like The Man 3. It's a neat little touch that makes the world feel more fleshed out and realistic. There's one poster though of particular note. Here it is. The poster in question is found in the daytime area at the end of the Speed Highway zone, but also in the cafe in Station Square. You know, the one where you find the Burger Guy statue outside. I've talked about that one before too. Innocuous enough at first glance, squint and you'll notice that the poster shows a quad of headshots of an unnamed character. Who are they? Well, there's a long history of people speculating and trying to decipher who the character in the poster is, because it always looks so intriguing. The earliest theory held by many fans was that this poster depicted Rouge the Bat, and that a piece of early concept art of Rouge had made its way into the game. A sensible guess. The character on the poster does have bold eyelashes after all, and before her design was finalised, Rouge did go through a couple of early iterations. This could have been one of them. In what is a neat twist of fate, Rouge's first English voice actor, Lanny Manella, actually voices the train announcer in Sonic Adventure, and the craziest theory that I ever read posited that Rouge worked for Station Square Metro Company and modelled for their ads before turning to a life of crime. It's a fun theory, but it is, of course, not correct. After 20 years of speculation, a few years ago we found out the true identity of this mystery billboard lady thanks to Satoshi Okano. Let me introduce you properly to this legend. Okano is a designer who joined Sega in 1996 but got his start working for Kaze Net Company in the early 1990s. Most of Okano's early artwork is fairly obscure, featured in games that never saw a Western release. But Okano's artwork always had this distinct, bold, elasticy look, and he always chose to use big, bright colours. Of Okano's early work, I think my favourite piece is this, the cover to Super Famicom racing game Astro Go-Go, featuring a futuristic cast, not unlike the racers of F-Zero. After joining Sega, Okano was tasked with creating some promotional artwork for the Saturn game Sonic Jam for Japan's Sega Saturn magazine. The piece produced by Okano for Sega Saturn magazine has become rather iconic, because Okano wanted to portray Sonic in a new, cool light. This is how he described his thought process when working on the piece. I wanted to give Sonic a timeless, cutting-edge image. I was raised on and inspired by American sci-fi movies, New York hip-hop, sneaker and street culture, and UK industrial rock music. My inspirations were George Lucas and Steven Spielberg movies, Nike basketball shoes, the Adidas tracksuits Run DMC wore in the 1988 photo shoots, Flavor Flav's clock and glasses, De La Soul, A Tribe Called Quest, Jungle Brothers lyrics, Bjork, Underworld, and other music videos, and artwork like that. The story goes that none other than Yuji Naka, hard at work on the early stages of Sonic Adventure at the time, was enamoured by Okano's redesign, including it as a bonus image in Sonic Jam. Okano's stylish reimagining of Sonic triggered an internal competition within Sega with the aim of overhauling and modernising Sonic's image, which had become a little bit stale at the time. Sonic, in short, had lost his cool, and Okano had helped to bring it back. This wasn't planned from the start, and some of Sonic Adventure's assets still show an older version of Sonic, but we can thank Okano for the plan to effectively relaunch Sonic's image. This is how Okano remembers this mini competition. As an example, when Sonic Jam came out, I drew a cover for Sega Saturn magazine which was well received. Yuji Naka was going around asking who did this. He was working on plans for a new Sonic for Dreamcast and wanted to give him a new style, so they held an internal competition. Among the 4 who participated in the contest, there was classic Sonic's father, Naoto Oshima, Yuji Uekawa, who drew characters like Rystar the Shining Star, and Takumi Miyake, who illustrated the 1996 Nights into Dreams storybook. Although I was a 3D field designer for Sega, I was recommended because of my past work on Saturn magazine. I was working as a 3D map designer at the time, so I didn't have much time to prepare, and I got second place to Uekawa. I was disappointed, but it was because of my drawing that the competition happened at all, which wound up setting the direction of the new Sonic, so it's a bittersweet memory. Of the 4, Uekawa would get the nod and be tasked with the responsibility of Sonic's redesign. Uekawa produced iconic pieces of artwork, but he also worked collaboratively with Okano on a number of pieces, and Okano's vision of Sonic does seem to have influenced Uekawa's final, unforgettable design. Okano continued to work on the Sonic franchise, designing environments, before moving on to focus on the Samba de Amigo series and the underrated gem Billy Hatcher in the early 2000s. Weirdly though, one of Okano's completely original character designs actually made it into the game, which brings us back to this mysterious poster. Okano is fairly active on his Twitter and regularly answers fans' questions about his work. When asked about this very poster, Okano enthusiastically replied that the poster is of a spider character. In one tweet, Okano squashed all of those rumours about Rouge the Bat. After the fans heard that the character was a spider, they went to work, and for years we got some really cool fan art of the character from the very creative Sonic fan community. Okano was originally hesitant to divulge too much due to the legal and moral ramifications of leaking development stuff, but in 2023, Okano went whole hog and released a treasure trove of never-before-seen pieces from his sketchbook, including a full body shot of Spider-Girl. So finally, after 25 years roughly, the mystery was now fully solved. We saw a full body shot of Spider-Girl, she looked awesome, and this is the face on the posters that confused us for all of those years. Pretty cool reveal, if you ask me. Among the other pieces shown were some Sonic 3D Blast pieces that he worked on, as well as artwork for some characters from Astro Go-Go. One of the Astro Go-Go characters was a bat-looking guy called Fly High. There's a few sketches of him in Okano's notebook, but there's also a slightly retooled design which is very similar to Fly High called Fly the Vampire, pictured alone, but also pictured with Sonic & Co. Okano joked that Fly was perhaps a little too scary for a Sonic character with his pig-like nose. If you're thinking to yourself that Fly the Bat looks like a natural fit for the Sonic world, that's probably because Fly High from Astro Go-Go, who is the basis for Fly the Bat, was inspired by Sonic the Hedgehog back in the day. There is this really cool piece of artwork inspired by Tim Burton's Batman movies of Fly exploring a gothic-looking cityscape. Just imagine a Sonic game with this sort of look. Wow. Makes me wonder if any artwork of Fly is hidden anywhere in Sonic Adventure. It does beg one question. How seriously were characters like Spider-Girl and Fly considered for Sonic Adventure? Okano gives the impression that they weren't given any serious consideration, and they were designed mainly for leisure, and crucially, he was an environment designer and was never asked to design any new characters. Okano replied to one question asking if Fly the Bat was seriously considered for Sonic Adventure by saying, "I didn't have a request for a new character." And in relation to Spider-Girl, He said, "I wanted a job creating characters. I remember this was a model of a Spider-Girl that I made and rendered from my sketchbook with the 3D tools I was using at the time between jobs. The thing is though, this does make the fact that Spider-Girl snuck into the game all the more fun. Okano might not have done these sketches with the idea that they'd make it into the final product, but Spider-Girl did." 2 final questions emerge. Does Spider-Girl have a name? Okano threw that responsibility out to the community and was fairly fond of the name Arachne. How about the colours? The Arachne poster is a blinding shade of green and red, so it's hard to tell, though fans have tried to decipher her intended colour scheme. What do you think? And that wraps things up. Spider-Girl got a little nod a few years ago, her poster reappearing in the IDW comic book, which is nice. Will we ever see her or Fly the Vampire fleshed out? I doubt it, but they're cute characters nonetheless. I just love the fact that fans have been so dedicated to working out the mystery of the poster, and in the process of finding out who it is, I think a lot of people, including myself, have gained a deeper appreciation for Okano's work. What do you reckon? Do you like Arachne and Fly the Vampire's designs? I'd like to thank ZM256. He's someone who's helped me gather some information for old videos and has kept a backup of many of Okano's tweets on his blog. That's all for today. Just a short one. I wanted to share one of my favourite little development stories from Sonic Adventure. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.